I'm so excited to see so many of you here because that means that I can finally take a break. I just recently graduated from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University with my Bachelor's of Science in Aeronautics and a minor in UAS. But that's not where my experience with UAVs began. I started flying UAVs in 2001. I started with Hunter, and when I finished with Hunter, I got to my duty station at Fort Hood, Texas, and they said, well, we don't need any Hunter pilots, we actually need shadow pilots. So I went back to school. And it seems like it's been a never-ending continuation of school since then. But I actually got my greatest experience and education with UAVs in combat. I flew them in Iraq in 2003 to 2004 and 2005 to 2006. And I can't express to you how much education that has given me. Unfortunately, any of you who go into this track probably will not gain the experiences that I have had. So I can't emphasize to you enough how important it is to go out and seek your education on your own. From whatever media you decide to pay attention to, whatever books you decide to read, whatever lectures you decide to attend, gain your education. Many of you probably will not have the opportunity to attend Embry-Riddle, and it's a fantastic school. But the University of Dubuque is also very, very valuable. I'm sorry, I'm a very nervous public speaker.
You're doing great.
Thank you. That's really, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a complete blank. That happens sometimes. I was surprised this morning when I walked in and I sat down right next to David Geisler. He was one of my instructor pilots when I first started learning how to fly. And it's such a small community. And I think the further you get into it, especially those of you who are youthful and going into this, you'll find as you go into it that it is a very small community. And it's a very tight and rich community as well. And the people that you meet, you'll continue to meet throughout your entire career. David Geisler is the Vice President of Rapid Imaging Software. So everyone give an applause to him too. Are there any questions for you? This is entirely away from agriculture, but yes?
How many veterans are actually coming out with similar experiences? Do you have some numbers on that? Or
I have no idea how many veterans are flooding out of the military market right now and into the civilian market. There is such a wealth of education, a wealth of knowledge coming from that. This morning, when Pravia was speaking, they were talking about the need for people who know how to maintain records, flight records, maintenance records, things like that. That is something that we as veterans do on a constant basis. We keep extensive records. And if you're looking for people who already have that background, who already know how to do that, then I would highly recommend hiring a veteran to take care of your records keeping at the very least. Veterans tend to be extremely disciplined when it comes to these things and methodical when it comes to their learning practices. So understanding that there's a deep learning curve that comes along with flying these things, and as I've listened to a lot of the lectures that have gone on today, everybody has said, oh, well, yeah, I can learn how to fly it, but I prefer to have somebody else do it, and I'll just work on the software. Hire a veteran who's already got the experience flying UAVs. If we haven't flown quadcopters, then we can learn how. My experience is entirely with fixed wing, medium altitude, long endurance aircraft. I fly Hunter, which at its heavy weight weighs over 1,600 pounds, and the Shadow that I've flown at its heavy weight, a wet wing system, weighs over 300 pounds. So these are not small aircraft. If you have the opportunity and you come across a person like me, please take into consideration hiring them. And I'm very excited once again to see all of you here because you are the next generation of UAV. All of you who are here, your investors, your students, your professors, you are the next generation of this. And you'll be taking it from here on out. And we've seen things come through military testing and then be developed in the civilian market. Everything from snap buttons to duct tape. So, UAVs are no different. We've tested them, we've worked out a lot of the kinks and the bugs, and it's taking that education and taking it to the next level in the private sector. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over now to Anderson.
One question.
Yes, sir.
As far as education stuff, I'm hearing it's probably more geared for law enforcement, drug enforcement, search and rescue, high-end type situations compared to like agriculture, especially for a veteran who's already got experience in that, with a larger platform.
The experience that I have, though, can be translated, not just from search and rescue and law enforcement and things like that. Yeah, I can understand how your mind would go directly to that, because it's not entirely dissimilar. But really what it boils down to is imagery analysis. Can you learn what it is that you're looking at?
So you're looking at, besides just being a pilot, you're gonna have to be an analyst also.
Any other questions? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, come on up there. Oh, take it away, Anderson. My name is Anderson Ott. I am a senior at the University of Dubuque here in Dubuque. I am 22 years old. I'm getting married in 81 days. I was approached by the heads of the aviation department last September, October-ish, to look into the initial regulations, the initial costs, the equipment options, and courses that a university would want to consider if it was going to begin the process of looking into offering a major and a minor in UAS operations. And I did that over my J term. It was a 3-week process. I had an enjoyable 3 weeks of perusing the FAA's website, and I conducted interviews, and it ended in a document that I passed my class, and then they asked me to present here, and so here I am. My research, again, regulations, cost, equipment, and then recommended classes. Chaminda is one of our heads of the department. Both the heads told me that I was given authority to recommend to the university. This was not just information, but I was going to suggest, and I was going to recommend what they do. First, the regulations. I looked into the regulations. All of my research was conducted in January, which was before the proposed rules were released. Everything was speculative at that time. I explained as well as I could that currently there are no commercial operations of UAS allowed without an exemption. You can either get your certificate of authorization or you can get your Section 333 exemption. If you are a public institution, you may go the certificate of authorization route. However, the University of Dubuque is a private university, so I didn't look into that. We have the Section 333, as was wonderfully explained by Brittany this morning. That is what the University of Dubuque would have to petition for and receive in order to fly physical UAVs, unless the proposed regulations come out before the university adds their UAS major. I spoke with Mark Hastings, who is a chief UAS pilot at UND Aerospace, and he said that currently UND is going through the Section 333 process, but has not passed it yet, and they are graduating majors based completely on simulators, that it is possible to have an entire UAS operations program based purely on simulators. His recommendation, though, was that you use what he called brand name simulators, and he highly recommended the higher level military grade ones, which brings into issue the export laws. He said he recommended Boeing ScanEagle, but because that is a military grade simulator, he said only U.S. citizens are allowed to gain access, and that creates logistical issues of restricting access to that. He said that UND has got swiped keycard access into the building and then into the room where they keep the simulators, and then you actually have to swipe to get out, so they know when you enter and they know when you leave. All of that research was done before the NPRM was released. At this point, technically everything is still the same, but the chances, but we now have an image of what might be, at which point it is, I mean, we will see what becomes, and we will see where this goes. In talking to Mark Hastings, he recommended, these are just the ones that he threw out really quick. As for simulators that a university could look into getting, there's the Corsair Engineering's IM 3-put, Boeing Scan Eagle, the Textron system, General Atomics, the Predator and the Reaper. I also talked with a student at Embry-Riddle. He said that Embry-Riddle has 10 Predator A stations and 1 Predator B, both of which can be operated for training as single pilot or dual pilot missions. In talking, in my research about the physical UAVs that a university might consider, I was talking with Mark Hastings, and he said the too many companies and too many institutions in their initial consideration of UAVs looks too much into airframe, and that they spend much time considering their airframe and what they want it to look like and what they want it to be able to do physically, and they leave out the issue of the sensors. He says that your sensors should drive your purchase, what you need your sensor to do, decide that, and then you can build or purchase an aircraft around that. He recommended having a user swappable sensor system. Don't buy something that comes with one sensor that you have to send to the shop or send to the manufacturer to change out the sensor. He said you want to cover as many of the spectra as you can, listing specifically the near infrared, optical, thermal, and multispectral. Those are the 4 bases that you really, really want. As for physical UAVs that are available to a university, there are a plethora. Even though you're not allowed to use them in America yet, you can still purchase them here. There are plenty of companies making them. There are lots of vendors out there. These are the ones that I found in a 10-minute internet search. DJI, right out there. They've got the Phantom Inspire. Precision Hawk has their Lancaster. And Ag Eagle has got their system right out there. I looked into pricing information. University of Duke asked me to consider prices. And I contacted these companies, both with the physical UAVs and with the simulators, and I didn't hear anything back from any of them. And I assume that's because I'm but a lowly undergrad with no purchase authority, but I wasn't able to give a very good indication of cost. I found Lancaster Precision Hawk system is on the order of, it was like somewhere between 16 and 32,000. These are not cheap. This is not a toy that we're recommending to the university. But I wasn't able to find concrete numbers. I was just told by Brittany this morning that this next part might actually not be correct. Mark Hastings said that the Section 333 exemption, which effectively waives the airworthiness requirement, means that you don't have to have a maintenance regime, which Brittany said you do. And so that last part is incorrect. You have to, even if you didn't, you would still want to have keep track of your mean time between failures, keep track of how frequently your rotors fail, how frequently your batteries fail, so that you can have a system that is economically sound and timely sound, so that you can replace things as they fail. But if you are required to have maintenance, you are required to have logs, then that's already taken care of. Then I was told to recommend to the university classes that they would offer that would lead to a degree in UAS operations. I did not consider any college's liberal arts core. That's their job. I also didn't pay much attention to the other classes, the other aviation-related classes that UD would offer. This is a total of 42 credits, if I remember my math correctly. And UD requires, it's 56 in the aviation management major and 52 in the flight operations major. So there are a couple more of just the general aviation-related classes that I didn't speak into as well. The first class is a 200 level intro to UAS. It's a 3-credit class. This is an intro to UAS. This is a quadcopter. This is a fixed wing. This is what you can do with them. This is the advantages between the two. These are the regulations. It's a very, very general class. Then I recommended 300-level classes for a total of 9 credits, going into a little more depth: sensor, ground, and then communications and telemetry. The sensor system, again, is examining all the sensor possibilities that are available, their advantages and disadvantages, which you would use in certain situations, which you would use with certain aircraft. The ground systems includes the maintenance, also talks on launch and recovery. This is a particularly large issue for fixed wing. Multi-rotary, they go up and then they come down, but how to successfully and safely get a fixed wing aircraft going and stopped. And then the communication and telemetry is a class on how you communicate with your UAV, what sort of data link you are using, whether or not you're getting live information back, how to protect that from nefarious people. And the telemetry is just taking the information that you got far over there and bringing it here and making sense of it, whether you've scanned a field or whether you've filmed a wedding. It is the process of taking information and using it. And then I recommend 3 400-level classes. CRM is just a crew resource management. Again, as the simulators, most of the simulators are designed for 2 people or 3 people. It develops the ability. I mean, crew resource management in the aviation world is everything right now. And this creates an environment where you are forced to work with somebody that you don't know, and it teaches you how to work safely and effectively as a team. The next 2, mission planning and operations, and then data acquisition, entry, and processing, are both 2-credit classes that are designed to be taken concurrently. Mission planning and operations is exactly as it sounds. You are creating a mission, you are designing how it's going to be enacted, and then you are doing it in a safe and effective manner. The data acquisition is acquiring your data, in a way that makes sense. You're entering it into whatever computer system you are using, and you are processing it in a way that you can serve your clients effectively. If you are filming a bike race, you're not going to be using the same computer application as if you are surveying a field or a sinkhole. And those two classes are designed to be taken at the same time, so functionally they're kind of the same class. And the design is that the seniors will reach out to businesses in the environment, in the community, and nonprofits, anybody who is looking for this kind of information, looking for this use, reach out to farmers. And they will work together in order to create a service that will better the community and spread the good name of the University of Dubuque. And finally, as I did do my research before the MPRM, everybody assumed, well, most people assumed that the FAA would require up through a commercial certificate. And I recommended to the university, just acting on that assumption, that they require all of their UAS majors to obtain a private instrument in commercial. At this point, I still highly recommend the private and the instrument. I would recommend the commercial as well. It's always better to get a higher rating. You'll be a safer pilot. The private is recommended so you understand what the pilots are going through when they interact with the UAV. You understand how to communicate in the environment. The instrument is recommended so that you are learning how to fly an aircraft safely off of secondary information. So you're not, you're not able to look out the window of your UAV. And so learning how to fly in instrument conditions develops that. And again, the same thing with the commercial. It is highly recommended that if you're a commercial pilot, you'll be safer, you'll be more effective. I think that's it. There were a couple other things, but I don't remember them. Do you have any questions?